Hi, and welcome to this installment of Giving Back. This is a show that we have developed to allow you to get to know the many local nonprofits that provide services for you here on the island, and nonprofits that you should be supporting. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Art Bergeron. I'm an attorney. I do elder law. I've been going to the Salt Marsh here like for years and years and years. With me is Sunny Daly, a local, right? A person whom everybody knows, but in her most recent iteration, she's the executive director of the Nantucket Community Foundation. And we've decided that we wanted to do this show to really just introduce you to a whole set of players, some of whom you know, but I bet many of whom you don't know here on the island. Now, in this case, I think we've got players that you probably know, whom Sunny invited. And so, Sunny, whom do we have today? We're going to have two guests, and we're doing each of these shows so that we'll have two guests in a show. Our guest today is?
So at the Community Foundation for Nantucket, one of the things that we've worked on pretty intensely in the last 5 years is behavioral health and trying to bring the providers together to figure out what the gaps are and then how to solve for those gaps. And two of the key players are here today. Chris Glowacki from Nantucket Cottage Hospital and Roberto Santamaria from Fairwinds have been integral in helping us figure out our way through behavioral health. So I thought today we would talk first about that as a framework of how they work together, and then separately about the unique work that they do.
So, Chris, first, once again, for that handful of people who don't know you here, can you just talk to us about, have you been here forever? How did you get here? Just briefly, and how you got involved with the hospital. I first heard about your involvement with the hospital because this being a small town, as I had mentioned to you, when I was sitting next to your wife at a volunteer event, actually, that had occurred at the hospital, and talking about the fundraising that in which you had been very involved, which resulted in the Nantucket Cottage Hospital. So can you just kind of talk about kind of who you are, what you're doing, and broadly what the hospital is doing? And then I'm going to ask Sunny to talk to you about specifically the behavioral health issues that you and others are working on together.
Sure. Well, that's a lot, but I'll do my best.
In less than 30 seconds.
Yeah, no, happy to. So I grew up on the island here. I was not born here, but my dad was, and we moved back when I was 5 years old, and I went through the schools here. And then on to college, got my business degree, and then spent some time in and around the New York area in a variety of roles, and then was looking to bring my family back home, as we often end up coming back, and really wanted to be involved in the community at the same time, and was trying to figure out where I could best apply my experience and my skills. And that was right at the time when the hospital was ramping up the effort to raise the money to build the new building. I was saying to my wife, there aren't really jobs on Nantucket for my background, and you don't find jobs online. She said, here's one, you'd be great at this. So was able to come back and get involved in the team at the hospital, a wonderful group of people running the hospital, volunteers, board members, development committee members, and get engaged and involved. And that was great. The community responded really, really well to that project. We built a beautiful new building, and then I remember talking to one of our donors at the time saying, well, what are you going to do after this? And her husband said, honey, hospitals always need money. And that certainly proved to be true.
Yeah.
So I've been with the hospital almost 10 years now. We all wear a variety of hats over there, not just me, but all the people in the administration, most of the clinical people, because we're such a small group. We all do a lot of things. So I get involved in a lot of community efforts, community facing for the hospital. The Vice President of Strategy, Community Engagement, and I'm the Chief Development Officer, and continue to handle the fundraising side as well.
Which sounds like a lot of fun.
It is. It is a lot of fun.
In some places, maybe not, but here, right? That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is an interesting place to do this, but because you have both sides of the equation. Obviously, there's a lot of people here who are very community focused and want to give back and have the means to give back, and then we've got such a great need on the flip side of it. So it's a pretty good place to be. So I got asked a lot after we successfully raised the $120 million for the new building. Gosh, how did you guys raise all that money? What did you do? How did you do this? I said, well, first of all, it wasn't me by a long shot, and second of all, we had the right cause. We had a cause that everyone could sort of understand and believe in and get behind.
That's great. That's pretty good. That didn't take very. So
It makes perfect sense, honestly, because everyone's going to use the hospital at one point or another. So.
Right.
I thought it was very interesting because I kind of came into this collection of folks right around the time the hospital was being built and sort of came through it with the lens of thinking about the hospital and the services they provide in healthcare. And behavioral health has always sort of come off to the side. It's like on a parallel track. But when I came into the conversation, those tracks started to overlap a little bit. And it was really a discussion around how are we going to do this? Who's best situated to do what and when and how?
Right.
And that I have to give props to everyone around the table in that moment because it's, Nantucket is funny and sometimes we say, not my job, but then sometimes there's nobody else to do it, right? So this was a great example of everybody coming together and nobody said it's not my job. They all said, who's best positioned to do it and how do we do it? And I think one of the greatest success stories is the partnership between Nantucket Cottage Hospital and Fairwinds to really do what they do best and kind of stay in a parallel track, right? So I was hoping you could talk a little bit about what that looks like now.
Yeah, I'll do my best. I mean, it's a complicated story, but it has been. I think it has gotten a lot better in the last couple of years. Historically, it's no easy task operating a hospital on this island, just in the sort of core function. So also, doing a really good job of kind of growing and helping on the behavioral health side has been very tough. And traditionally, for years, the hospital kind of stuck to its knitting and was kind of that last bit of crisis protection for someone if they needed, right now, an emergency situation to end up in the ER, the hospital could keep them safe until they were ready to either go home or go to a higher level of care.
Right, you're like the fireman as opposed to any of the prevention.
Yeah, at the very, very end of that, and not really able to, think very broadly about an effort beyond that. But, for years and years and years, as Sunny knows very well, the hospital is constantly doing these community needs assessments and reaching out to the community and understanding what the needs are. And, behavioral health has been right up there as number one or number two. I mean, this is not a new problem, right? This goes back as long as I can remember here at the hospital. Certainly with COVID and other things, kind of you got in the growth on the island, right? The issues have gotten somewhat bigger. But we did want to respond to that. We did feel we were in a position, and we were approached by the leadership at Fairwinds at the time, saying, "Hey, will you be a part of really looking at the community broadly at where the gaps are? Will you help us kind of get involved in the study, and can we work at looking at this broadly?" And so I brought it to the president of the hospital at that time, and they said, "Absolutely, let's kind of change our posture on this and really try to take a leadership role." And we heard back from the community very strongly. Thank you. We've been looking for the hospital to at least take some kind of leadership role, even if you can't. There's no way you can completely solve the problem. So we did put together a coalition with Fairwinds, with the community foundation involved. The town got very involved. The schools, everyone sort of came together to form this group to start looking at the gaps. We brought in some consultants that had done some really good work in the western part of the country, in the Vail area, who helped us put together a study, kind of look at those gaps. I think we all started to learn and work together better as partners, and it was interesting because while we were all working on sort of this framework of understanding the gaps, we were also building trust and getting to know each other better and getting to sort of find other ways to work with each other. Sometimes it's not it's not the agenda conversation; it's the conversation that happens on the way out of the meeting. So I think that was very useful as well. And and I think really the partnership between the hospital and Fairwinds has a lot of elements to it. Fairwinds is in hospital property over in Gwynn Village. And then over the course of this, Fairwinds really got very aggressive in building their own footprint and taking on some of the state framework. Roberto can speak much more clearly to that than I can. But
and by the way, as you probably can tell, there's a mystery guest that you're going to be seeing shortly that every once in a while we keep looking at, right? Just so that we can all kind of get reinforcement. Yeah.
And so we ended up coming together, and at the time, the hospital was dealing with some folks that were in crisis when they were in our emergency room. If they came in sort of in one way, there were others in the community that were dealing with those patients. If they came in other ways, it's still way too fragmented a system, but it was a much worse fragmented system. We were able to come together with, as Fairwinds took on this role of kind of being the crisis provider island-wide, whether it's in people's homes or in our emergency department or in the schools, wherever, and knit together that partnership so it's a much more unified system of response in the case of folks in crisis. And there are a lot of pieces to that and a lot of elements, and a lot of the pieces that my clinical colleagues have done the hard work on and put together. But I think we've made a lot of progress.
Now, can I just have one piece of trivia? Because as many folks know, I do work here and on the other island, but one of the things that the two of you have in common, and I know there isn't that much you have in common, I have to keep saying, one of the things you have in common is the two hospitals that are both Brigham and Women's
Mass General
hospitals.
Brigham, yep.
So can you just give us, what has been the reaction of the kind of what I'll call the mothership to all of that? Because it sounds like you're doing things that may very well be replicable in other places, right? And so it could be really positive to this very big system. You know?
Well, the system certainly believes in community outreach and integrating the community and community partnerships. So that has been, they've had an eye on that, and they've definitely applauded that. They're also, everyone's looking for solutions to how you address issues of behavioral health. So I think there is a lot of interest and attention on that. Our colleagues on the Vineyard, and they have a great hospital over there, I think they have a much bigger challenge because they have the 5 towns. And Roberto will remember this from during the COVID in particular. One of the great benefits we had in this community was, one school system, one hospital, one town, and we worked collaboratively very, very well. Over there, what a circus, because you had, the hospital trying to, you may remember how coordinated the messages were, and you'd see Roberto sitting around the table with Gary Shaw, who was the hospital president at the time, and one message. Over there, you had 5 select boards, very different towns, with very different approaches to things. So we do have the benefit of having the one town here, and although, the health and human services world on this island may seem fragmented, we can at least all pretty much get in the same room, and we do. I mean, I was thinking when we walked in, at the last meeting I saw these two in was, Monday, I think. We all go from meeting to meeting, and it's like the meetings change by about 80% of their composition, and it's usually the same folks in the room getting together to try to solve things.
And so that really is a benefit. I mean, I see that play out, and because there, if you're saying, it's kind of like not my job, you can legitimately kind of point down and say, it's that town's job. It's not my, right? Whereas here, you just can't.
Can't do it.
Yeah.
You just can't. Otherwise, you're in the water.
Correct.
It's not the water's job, right? We have to figure this stuff out.
We have to work together.
And from the hospital's perspective, kind of, where is this going from here? Because obviously, it's just sounding like some wonderful things have happened. And now I'm dying to hear from the
Well,
guy that's off the camera.
specific to this behavioral health initiative, out of that came its own organization, Community Solutions for Behavioral Health, brought on an executive director a year ago, and that was
Community Citizens for Behavior.
Community Solutions
For Behavioral
Health. Spent a lot of time working on that brand together, and we thought it really captured what we were looking to do is have the community come up with community-wide solutions for behavioral health, because that's really what's needed. We have an executive director who we brought on, and part of it was, we were all sort of doing this, like every 2 weeks we were meeting, or every week sometimes, and we had subcommittees, and really the job got too big for those of us who had, day jobs and other responsibilities. So now we have a dedicated person, and the way, I think we all probably describe it a little bit differently. I think it's important to note that unlike Fairwinds, it's not a service provider. It doesn't have its own, clinicians who are working with. It's really working on looking at the sort of infrastructure issues of the network. The way I like to explain it is it's sort of like having someone who can do strategic planning for the whole ecosystem as opposed to each one of us doing it in our own silos. Where is the most important need? Where can you make the biggest impact? And already, I think, Rosemary's done a terrific job of bringing in and getting us better connected to state resources, getting a better understanding between the state and the community organizations of how we can work together, and starting to plan on some really significant initiatives, and hold us all responsible to kind of how we should be thinking about it and where we can help come together and create solutions. So I think we continue to make progress. It is hard work.
It's hard work.
Yeah, but
This
and
is
it,
terrific.
and it never goes.
This is really terrific.
It never goes nearly as I'm a little bit shocked by how long we've been at it. Now I'm like, come on, we should have done so much more by now. But you've got to take the wins where you get them, and move things along.
It's pretty amazing where you've gone already. Right? So thank you very much for coming, and thank you for inviting Chris Glowacki. I think, and now we're going to take a very short break, and then you're going to see the person that we kept looking at during that show.
Thanks for having me.
Chris, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.